The boardroom on the 39th floor of Wellington Industries was as sterile and gleaming as a surgical theater. The kind of place where billion-dollar deals were made beneath the hum of recessed lighting and behind walls of glass that overlooked the proud, bustling Manhattan skyline. No fingerprints, no flaws, everything polished to reflect power. Jasmine Parker stepped inside quietly, her presence barely acknowledged as usual. She wore a standard issue gray janitorial uniform, her hair tied back, a cleaning cart rolling beside her like a shadow. For 3 years, she'd walked these halls, silent and invisible. Today would be no different, at least not yet. As she entered, the final stragglers from the morning's executive meeting were still filtering out. Tension lingered like the faint smell of expensive cologne and disappointment. Rebecca Stanton emerged first. 40s, platinum blonde perfection, sculpted into a red power suit and razor-sharp heels that clicked like gunshots on the marble floor. Her voice, sharp and confident, sliced through the silence. She was speaking to David Moore, the company's CEO, a man in his early 50s with kind eyes dulled by years of compromises. "We can't keep lowering standards to appease optics," Rebecca said flatly, not bothering to lower her voice despite Jasmine's quiet movements in the corner. "There's a reason I filter resumes. Not everyone is a cultural fit." David gave a tired sigh. "It's not about optics, Rebecca. It's about federal compliance and dignity." She leaned in closer, adjusting his tie like a mother fixing her son before picture day. "Then let's make it look diverse," she said with an icy smile, "but let's not hand the keys to the Bentley to someone who doesn't know how to drive." Jasmine didn't flinch. She had mastered the art of disappearing in plain sight. People spoke openly around her, as if her uniform made her deaf, as if her presence didn't count. That's how she had survived Wellington Industries, by becoming furniture. But furniture had eyes and ears. That night, Jasmine sat cross-legged in her small Brooklyn apartment, lit only by the glow of her laptop. She wore an oversized sweater and had a mug of tea steaming beside her. With careful fingers, she opened a folder she had kept hidden for 2 years. The folder was called Wellington Industries Irregularities. Inside, 63 pages of damning evidence. Nothing theoretical, all documented. Screenshots, emails, edited spreadsheets. Deleted call logs restored from the company's server, photographs of internal memos Rebecca had carelessly left out, and audio recordings, many of which Jasmine had captured during late-night weekend shifts when no one else was around but her and the walls. The most recent evidence was the most devastating. It proved that Rebecca had deliberately sabotaged 3 major contracts over the past 18 months, contracts with black-owned companies. Jasmine had watched it all unfold from the shadows. Clients misled, deliverables delayed, budgets inflated until they burst. She had seen Rebecca lie with the grace of a practiced actress and take credit for projects birthed by others. But the most poisonous detail of all, Rebecca had used her position to block the promotions of several employees whose appearance Jasmine knew she considered off-brand for Wellington's image. This wasn't just corporate rot. This was sabotage wearing lipstick. Jasmine closed her laptop and stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline. She could see the lights of the tower where she worked, still blinking like an indifferent lighthouse in the fog. But things were shifting. She could feel it in her chest, in her breath. The meeting earlier today had meant something. Mr. Chun, the Chinese executive from the visiting delegation, hadn't just watched her translate during negotiations. He had studied her. Jasmine could tell. His gaze had lingered in a way that had nothing to do with language. It was a respect. At precisely 10 o'clock the next morning, Jasmine walked into Café Mandarin on 42nd Street, wearing a navy blue blouse and a slim gray skirt she had purchased the night before. Her reflection in the glass door looked different, alert, determined, precise. Inside, Mr. Chan was already seated, sipping tea with a woman in her early 40s, dressed in a dark green suit. Jasmine recognized her immediately from the research she'd done last night. Lisa Wong, Vice President of International Development, known throughout Asia's business elite for her ruthless intelligence and uncanny instincts. Miss Parker, Mr. Chun said with a nod. Then he switched to Mandarin. Yesterday I observed not only your linguistic fluency, but something far more valuable, your composure under undue pressure. Lisa leaned forward, her fingers steepled beneath her chin. Our company is expanding into North America. We need someone who understands both Chinese culture and American business dynamics, someone who's seen how business really works behind closed doors. And someone, Mr. Chun added, his smile almost imperceptible, who has the dignity not to bow to small people in big positions. For 2 hours, Jasmine spoke with clear, fearless articulation. She dissected market strategies, explained cultural missteps American companies often made when negotiating in Asia, and illustrated how Western arrogance often underestimated Asian sophistication. She never mentioned Wellington Industries by name, but when she referred to certain irregularities she'd observed at competing firms, her message was crystal clear. Lisa and Mr. Chun exchanged a subtle glance. At the end of the meeting, Lisa slid a black business card across the table. It read, Parker and Associates, International Consulting. Jasmine's breath caught. The salary package printed beneath was 5 times what she currently earned. Mr. Chun stood. Consider our offer carefully, he said. But know this, we have one condition. We'd like you to start by helping us investigate certain discrepancies in Wellington Industries' contracts. There is evidence of violations, serious ones, enough to trigger federal scrutiny. Jasmine's hand trembled only slightly as she took the card. There's an emergency meeting tomorrow at Wellington, Lisa added quietly, rising from the table. We've learned that the Chinese delegation has filed a formal complaint. It might be worth your while to attend. That night, Jasmine called her mother. Mom, remember how you always said patience is a smart woman's most powerful weapon? Her mother chuckled warmly. Of course, baby. Why? Jasmine's voice was steady now. I think I finally understand what you meant. After hanging up, Jasmine sat on the windowsill and stared out at the city that had once made her feel small, invisible, forgotten. Tomorrow, the city would witness a reckoning. Wellington Industries was about to learn that for 3 years, the woman they treated like background noise had been watching, listening, and preparing, and she was done being invisible. The elevator doors glided open with a soft hiss on the 39th floor of Wellington Industries, and Jasmine Parker stepped out with calm precision. Gone was the janitorial uniform. In its place, she wore a fitted charcoal blazer, a silk cream blouse, and a look in her eyes that said, I am no longer a ghost. Her heels clicked against the polished marble as she made her way down the corridor, each step measured, unflinching. The morning light filtered through the glass walls like judgment. The boardroom was already filling with tension. Executives gathered around the long obsidian table, murmuring in low tones, glancing at one another with nervous, shallow smiles. Something was off. Everyone could feel it. David Moore sat at the head of the table, brows furrowed, fingers steepled. Across from him sat Rebecca Stanton, immaculate as ever, her red lipstick a slash of power, her posture straight, defiant. She had heard rumors, a compliance investigation, a delegation concern, but she assumed it was routine. After all, she was Wellington Industries. Then Jasmine entered. The silence that followed was loud. David stood, awkwardly adjusting his jacket. Miss Parker, I wasn't expecting you. She was invited, said a calm voice from the doorway. Mr. Chen entered, followed by Lisa Wong and a man in a navy suit carrying a black leather case marked with the U.S. Department of Commerce seal. Behind them trailed 2 assistants and a translator. The air shifted like a thunderhead rolling in. David swallowed. Please, have a seat. Rebecca's eyes narrowed as Jasmine walked past her, not sparing a glance. Instead, Jasmine sat beside Lisa Wong, placing a slim file folder on the table. Her movements were slow, deliberate. Mr. Chun began without preamble. "We're here today to discuss the formal grievance filed by our delegation," he said, his voice like tempered steel. "Our company submitted a $42 million contract proposal that was sabotaged from within this organization." Rebecca let out a tight laugh, adjusting her cufflink. "Sabotage is a very serious word, Mr. Chun. If there's been a miscommunication, I assure you it was unintentional." Lisa spoke next, voice sharp. "We're not here to discuss intentions. We're here to examine outcomes and patterns." Jasmine slid the folder toward David. "May I?" He nodded. She opened it. One by one, she laid out the evidence, color-coded spreadsheets, internal memos, email transcripts with redacted names now unredacted. She spoke clearly, carefully, never raising her voice. She told the story of missing documents, manipulated delivery times, targeted delays. Then she brought out the final piece, a voice recording. The room went still as Rebecca's voice filled the speakers. "They can't even pronounce half the terms in the proposal. Let's not pretend this is a real partnership. Let the file go missing. We'll send a polite rejection in 2 weeks. Problem solved." A cold shiver ran through the room. Rebecca's face went pale. "That's taken out of context." "There's more," Jasmine said, her voice now harder. "But I thought we'd start with the mildest." David looked stricken. His fingers trembled slightly as he turned the pages, scheming damning lines that made his mouth go dry. Rebecca stood abruptly. "This is absurd. She's a janitor." "I was," Jasmine corrected. "But I was also your Mandarin translator for over 2 years, and I was the one who kept track of everything your team tried to bury." "She's not even an employee of the legal department." Rebecca tried again, desperation bleeding into her voice. "I'm not," Jasmine agreed, "which means I wasn't bound by the same gag orders or loyalty clauses." Mr. Chun raised an eyebrow. "And she never falsified documentation." Lisa folded her arms. "But you did, Miss Gustanton. We have at least 5 contracts where clauses were altered without secondary sign-off. 2 of those involve federal funding. That's a federal crime." David's face collapsed into his hands. "Jesus Christ!" Rebecca's voice rose in panic. "This is a witch hunt. This is retaliation for rejecting her." "I didn't want your job," Jasmine said. "I wanted to expose the way you decided who was worthy to succeed here, and who wasn't. I watched you bury people, Rebecca. I watched you ruin them. You thought no one was watching." Rebecca's eyes flicked to David, desperate. But David had already leaned back in his chair, defeated, broken. "You've exposed the company to federal liability," he whispered. Lisa slid a document toward him. "We're buying a 35% share in Wellington Industries. As part of our deal, Rebecca Stanton must be removed immediately, pending legal proceedings, and Jasmine Parker will take over as interim cultural consultant to oversee restructuring." Rebecca stepped back, lips parted. "You can't—" David looked up at her with hollow eyes. "You already did this to yourself." Security was called. Rebecca didn't go quietly. She screamed something about betrayal, about sabotage, about being the real victim. No one responded. The doors shut behind her like the closing of a coffin. After a moment, Mr. Chun turned to Jasmine. "You kept your silence for years. Why now?" Jasmine looked around the room. Part 3. Eyes that see everything. The boardroom was silent. Rebecca's footsteps echoed faintly in the corridor as security escorted her away, her red suit a flash of defiance quickly swallowed by the glass walls and corporate silence. No one said a word, not even after the doors hissed shut. The entire room was suspended in a moment of reckoning. Jasmine Parker sat still, her hands calmly resting on the mahogany table. She wasn't gloating. She wasn't smiling. She was composed, as if this had all been inevitable. In truth, it had. It had simply taken 3 years to arrive at this moment. David Moore broke the silence first, running a hand through his graying hair. "We'll need to issue a statement. And legal will need full access to everything. Jasmine, the files, I have backups," Jasmine said, nodding. "Hard copies and encrypted digital ones. They're organized by category: financial misconduct, discriminatory behavior, sabotage, federal compliance violations. She pushed a second folder across the table. You'll want to start here. Mr. Chun leaned forward, studying Jasmine with interest. Do you understand what you've just done? Yes, she replied. I've turned on the lights. Lisa Wong offered a rare smile. We'd like to offer you a provisional contract to begin as Director of International Relations. It's not symbolic. It's a functional leadership role. She glanced at David. Assuming you're ready for a real change. David nodded, still dazed. If she saved us from a federal lawsuit, I'm more than ready. But Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She sat back in her chair, eyes scanning the room, the framed mission statements, the glass walls, the men in suits who once walked by her like she was invisible. All of them were watching her now, listening, weighing her. She was no longer a ghost, she finally said. I accept, but I want operational autonomy on all international partnerships for the first 6 months. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Ambitious. I have waited 3 years, Jasmine said calmly. I'm not starting slow. After the meeting, Jasmine stood in the corridor, watching the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan stretched before her, no longer indifferent, no longer distant. Now it looked like possibility. Jennifer, a junior secretary who once offered Jasmine leftover bagels without a second thought, approached hesitantly. Miss Parker, Director, congrats. Jasmine smiled. Thank you, Jennifer. Please just call me Jasmine. Jennifer hesitated. I saw what happened in there with Rebecca. I just wanted to say, I'm glad someone finally said something. She made a lot of people feel small. Jasmine's gaze softened. No one deserves to feel small in the place they work hardest. Jennifer nodded, visibly relieved. She walked away smiling, but Jasmine remained by the window. Her reflection in the glass was different now, sharper, more defined, not because of a title, but because she had stopped waiting for permission to be seen. That evening, Jasmine returned to her small Brooklyn apartment one last time. The space felt different now. The creaky floorboards, the yellow-tinted lamp on her desk, the stack of binders beside her bed, all relics of a time when she was building an empire in the shadows. She opened her laptop. The desktop was organized, sterile, almost obsessive. A folder marked Wellington still sat on the corner of the screen. She hovered her cursor over it, then clicked. 63 documents, each one a quiet rebellion, each one a chapter in her long game. She opened the audio folder, scrolling to the final recording, the one where Rebecca called her a cleaning lady who didn't know her place. Jasmine closed the file. She no longer needed to hear it. She had already answered it. Her phone buzzed. Mom calling. She answered with a smile. Hi, Ma. How'd it go today? Her mother asked gently. Jasmine turned to the window. The skyline glittered like applause. You remember when you used to tell me that patience is a smart woman's sharpest weapon? Of course. Why? I finally used it. There was a pause on the line, then soft, quiet pride. I always knew you would. The next morning, Jasmine stood in the lobby of Wellington Industries, but this time not with a mop, not with a badge that marked her invisible. She wore the navy blazer she had bought the day before with the advance money from Chun's firm. Her new nameplate had arrived, Director Jasmine Parker, International Relations. As she walked through the executive floor, people paused to watch her pass. Some smiled with uncertainty, some with awe. A few avoided her gaze altogether. She noticed them all. She always had. At her new office on the 38th floor, the glass doors bore her title. Inside, a fresh orchid had been left on the desk, a subtle welcome gift from Lisa Wong. Jasmine placed her phone and laptop on the desk and took a deep breath. No one had given her this power. She had taken it. She had earned it, not with privilege or politics, but with focus, resilience, and silence weaponized into strategy. That afternoon, she received her first official meeting request from the South Korean delegation, eager to reopen negotiations Rebecca had nearly destroyed. Jennifer, now her assistant, stood in the doorway, beaming with excitement. "They're waiting for you in conference room C, Jasmine. They're excited to meet you." Jasmine adjusted her jacket, picked up her notes, and smiled. "Let's show them what we can really do." She stepped into the corridor again, but now the hallway wasn't the place she passed through. It was her domain. She no longer walked with caution. She walked with purpose. And somewhere across the city, in a dim apartment in Queens, Rebecca stared at a rejection letter. The fourth one this week. Her resume meant nothing now. Her name triggered alerts. Her history was no longer impressive. It was radioactive. But this wasn't Jasmine's concern anymore. Jasmine wasn't here to destroy the past. She was building the future. And the empire was only beginning. 3 weeks had passed. The South Korean trade deal, once doomed, was now fully revived and approaching final signature. Jasmine's negotiation tactics had impressed even the most skeptical diplomats. Where Rebecca used aggression, Jasmine used precision. Where others spoke to show power, Jasmine listened to find it. At the conference table, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her silence unnerved men twice her age. When she did speak, it was like a scalpel, exact, calm, cutting straight to the bone. Wellington Industries had never moved so quickly toward global legitimacy. But with every boardroom victory came a shadow. And it had a name. Martin Graves. Martin was the chief operating officer, a relic from the old guard. In his mid-60s, with a face that had grown smug from years of unchallenged authority. He'd survived scandal, boardroom bloodletting, and CEO purges. He didn't fear people like Jasmine, until now. She noticed him watching her after every meeting. He never said much, but he was always there, smiling without warmth, always writing in that little leather notebook he kept by his side. One day, after a long strategy session, Jasmine stayed back to gather her notes. The rest of the executives filtered out, murmuring about next steps. Only Martin remained. "Impressive presentation," he said, not quite a compliment. "You've done more in 3 weeks than Rebecca did in 2 years." "Thank you," Jasmine replied, not looking up. "But I've been here long enough to know that fast success burns the brightest right before it crashes." Jasmine paused, then looked him in the eye. "Or before it changes everything." Martin smiled slowly. "Just remember, empires aren't built on ambition alone. They require loyalty and fear." She watched him walk away, knowing a war had just quietly begun. Later that evening, Jasmine sat in her new apartment in Tribeca, sleek, minimal, with floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the sunset like a fire. But despite the luxury, the silence felt loud. Her rise had been meteoric, but it came at a cost. Trust was rare, and loneliness was constant. She opened her email. 36 new messages, 11 marked urgent, one from Lisa Wong flagged with an encrypted tag. Confidential, urgent, internal risk flag. She clicked it. Jasmine, legal has intercepted a data leak attempt involving offshore accounts tied to Rebecca's tenure. The leak was blocked, but it came from inside. We believe Martin is testing your reach. Be careful. Lisa Jasmine leaned back, her mind already working in layers. She had expected retaliation, but not this soon and not through something so subtle. She replied simply, "Let him test me. He won't like what he finds." The next day, Jasmine arrived early, earlier than everyone else. She moved through the executive floor quietly, listening, watching. She noticed everything. The way Martin's assistant had been replaced without announcement. The way finance reports started showing redacted lines. The way her calendar suddenly had 5-minute gaps she hadn't booked. She called Jennifer. "Cross-check my meeting logs for the past 10 days. Who had access?" Jennifer hesitated. "Only Martin and his secretary, but his secretary just disappeared." "Find her." Jasmine wasn't afraid, but she was awake now. This wasn't just politics, it was war in a tailored suit. 2 days later, she found herself standing in front of the building's internal audit division. a place few executives ever voluntarily entered. She walked past startled analysts and into a back room where Lisa Wong waited, flanked by 2 legal officers. "We found a ghost ledger," Lisa said, sliding a file across the table. Rebecca had funneled over $3.2 million into a series of dummy vendors over 5 years, and Martin signed off on all of them. Jasmine's hands were steady as she turned each page. "Can we prove it?" "Not yet, but it's enough to bury his reputation if we can get someone to talk." A name was highlighted on the final page. Gwen Harrell, Martin's old secretary, the one who vanished. She was listed as the point of contact on 3 of the fake vendors, Lisa said. "If we find her, I'll find her," Jasmine said. "She was kind to me. She's not loyal to Martin. She's just scared." That evening, Jasmine took the subway out to Queens. She wore no heels, no makeup, no power blazer, just jeans and a gray hoodie. She looked like any other tired New Yorker heading home after a long day. She found Gwen in a narrow apartment above a laundromat. The woman opened the door cautiously, eyes wide with surprise. "Jasmine?" "I need 5 minutes," Jasmine said. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for the truth." Inside, Gwen poured them tea with trembling hands. "I didn't know at first. He told me they were international logistics accounts, that it was above my pay grade to ask." "Did you ever question him?" "I tried," Gwen whispered. "Once. He told me that if I ever brought it up again, I'd never work in the city again, that he'd ruin my name." Jasmine leaned forward. "What if I told you? His name is already crumbling." Gwen looked up, her eyes filling. "You can stop him?" "I can end him." A silence passed between them, and then Gwen nodded. "I kept the receipts, in case. I never sent them to anyone. They're on a flash drive. I'll give them to you." Jasmine didn't smile, didn't gloat. She simply said, "You're doing the right thing." Back in her office the next morning, Jasmine plugged in the drive. Dozens of files loaded onto the screen, invoices, emails, spreadsheets, each one a nail in Martin Graves' coffin. She forwarded it to Lisa. Within hours, the board was in emergency session. By evening, Martin Graves was escorted out. No headlines, no announcement, just a quiet burial. But Jasmine knew better. Power didn't die with a bang. It died with a paper trail. And now she stood on the edge of something far bigger. This wasn't just about Rebecca anymore. This was about building an empire clean from the ashes of corruption. And Jasmine Parker had just removed her second king from the board. Jasmine Parker sat alone in the boardroom, the same boardroom where Martin Graves once smirked from the corner like a crow, waiting for weakness. His chair was empty now. No one dared sit in it, not yet. Outside the glass walls, New York rumbled beneath gray skies. Rain beat against the windows like a warning. Thunder cracked above the skyline as if the city itself knew something was coming. Inside, she reviewed her next target, the international audit. The board had greenlit a full investigation into Wellington's global arms. Jasmine had requested it. She'd framed it as a transparency initiative. But really it was a weapon. One she planned to aim at every remnant of Rebecca's empire, every shell company, every buried bribe, every executive who'd smiled at her and whispered lies. Her team was already deep in Asia-Pacific documents, hundreds of transactions, decades old. It was like digging through a graveyard where each name had a secret. But one file kept rising to the surface, the Dhaka deal. Bangladesh, 2017. A failed infrastructure loan facilitated by Wellington Capital's South Asia branch. The file was marked closed due to market volatility. But Lisa Wong didn't believe that. Neither did Jasmine. "There's $42 million missing," Lisa said, standing in Jasmine's office with dark circles under her eyes. "Transferred through a Malaysian bank, then gone. Vanished. Who authorized it?" Lisa hesitated. "Rebecca's name is nowhere, but guess whose is?" Jasmine's jaw clenched. "Say it." "Charles Sato, regional VP at the time. He's now head of international strategy, Charles. The man with the charming grin and Oxford tie. He'd welcomed Jasmine warmly when she first joined, even offered mentorship, but now she saw the strings, the false sincerity, the careful distance he kept from Rebecca, too perfect to be accidental. "He's been buying silence," Lisa added, "and we think he's still doing it." Jasmine didn't answer. She was already making the call. In Geneva, Charles Sato was enjoying caviar at a private club when the call came. "Jasmine," he said smoothly, voice like velvet over ice. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "I want to see you, in person." "Trouble in paradise?" "No," Jasmine said. "Just want to know how deep the roots go before I start pulling them out." There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "You sound like Rebecca." "I sound like the woman who took her place." She hung up. The meeting was set. London, 48 hours. The jet landed under an overcast sky. Jasmine stepped off in a tailored black coat, flanked by 2 aides and a private investigator named Malik. ex-MI5, sharp-eyed and silent. The Mayfair suite was opulent. Jasmine waited by the window, watching London streets churn below. Across from her, Charles poured tea with absurd calm. "You've grown sharper," he said. "More dangerous. You stole $42 million and laundered it through at least 3 shell companies." "Allegedly," he smiled. "And what exactly do you plan to do with that information?" Jasmine leaned forward. "Burn your name off every wall you've ever touched. Strip your title, freeze your assets, and hand you to the World Financial Court." Charles's smile faltered for the first time. "You can't prove it. The files are buried. And the witnesses?" "I have the witness," he froze. "Ravidas," Jasmine said. "Your fixer in Kuala Lumpur. He came forward this morning, told us everything. He's in protective custody now." Charles's face turned pale. "You don't understand what you're playing with," he hissed. "This goes beyond me, beyond Rebecca. There are names on those documents you don't want to see." Jasmine didn't blink. "Then I'll see them." Charles stood. "You want to be queen of the ruins? Go ahead. But when the tower falls, don't pretend you weren't warned." Back in New York, Jasmine had Malik deliver the final audit files to Lisa. As soon as Lisa saw the last page, she gasped. "Oh my God." "What is it?" Jasmine asked. "It's not just Charles. It's half the International Committee, 2 board members, and... She stopped. Jasmine took the file, and there it was. Paul Wellington, chairman, founder's son. The man who gave Jasmine her start. She stared at the name, the signature. Her hands suddenly felt cold. "Is this real?" she asked. Lisa nodded. "It's his trust account. He signed off on all of it. He knew." Jasmine stepped back, stunned. Paul had always played the role of the patriarch, quiet, wise, untouched by the games below. But now the truth lay bare. He wasn't above the corruption. He was at the center. "I trusted him," Jasmine whispered. Lisa spoke gently. "Do you want to bury this? We can seal the files. Say it was just Charles." But Jasmine looked up, eyes clear, voice steel. "No." Lisa hesitated. "Are you sure? This could bring the whole company down." "Then let it fall," Jasmine said, "and I'll build something better from the wreckage." That night, as thunder rolled over Manhattan, Jasmine stood alone in her office, staring out at the city. She had taken down Rebecca. She had dismantled Martin. She had crushed Charles. But now, she had to destroy her mentor. And something inside her broke. But she didn't cry. She wrote a letter to the board of directors. "Please find attached evidence of fraud and embezzlement involving current chairman Paul Wellington. I request an emergency vote for his removal, effective immediately." She hit send. And somewhere below the towers of Manhattan, the ground began to shift. It was raining again. Not the gentle, poetic kind, but the cold, punishing sheets that made the city feel like it was drowning. Outside Wellington Tower, black cars lined the curb like vultures waiting for a carcass. Inside, the executive boardroom was filled with an eerie silence. 12 members sat around the long mahogany table, some with files open in front of them, some staring at their hands. No one spoke. At the head of the table sat Paul Wellington. His face was blank, as if he'd aged 10 years overnight. Across from him, Jasmine sat with her shoulders squared, eyes locked on his. She wore no jewelry, no accessories, just a simple charcoal suit and a white shirt. But her presence filled the room more than any title or lineage ever could. David cleared his throat. "We've reviewed the evidence submitted by Director Parker." He said her title with quiet reverence now. Everyone did. Paul leaned forward, his voice calm. "I see. And you believe it?" "We verified the bank records through 3 sources," said Lisa Wong, her voice icy. "The shell corporations lead directly to your Cayman account." "It was for company purposes." "Save it," Jasmine interrupted, her tone cutting through the air like a blade. "You signed off on $42 million in ghost transfers. You approved the DACA deal and used Ravi Days to cover your tracks." Paul exhaled slowly. "I built this company." Jasmine nodded. "Then you'll understand why I can't let you be the one to destroy it." He looked at her, eyes full of a strange sorrow. "I gave you your first opportunity," he said softly. "You gave me a job," she replied. "But you also made sure I stayed invisible, just like everyone else who wasn't born into the right family, or wore the right name, or looked the right way." Murmurs rippled through the room. Mr. Johnson, the oldest board member, the same man who had once defended her against Rebecca, tapped the table with a pen. "I think it's time we voted," he said. Paul didn't argue. Maybe he knew there was nothing left to say. One by one, the board members raised their hands. 11 votes for removal, 1 abstention. David stood. "Effective immediately, Paul Wellington is removed from his position as chairman. All access credentials will be revoked. We will be notifying the SEC and the Department of Justice." Paul rose slowly. He looked around the room he had once ruled, at the walls that bore his family's portraits, at the company his father had built. Then his eyes settled back on Jasmine. "You've won," he said. "No," she answered. "The company won. The people who work here won. You just finally got caught." He nodded once. "Don't think this will make them love you." "I'm not here to be loved," Jasmine said, rising to her feet. "I'm here to make sure no one else ever has to survive what I did." The next morning, news exploded. Breaking: Wellington Industries ousts chairman amid $42 million scandal. Jasmine Parker leads reform in historic boardroom. Coup: the cleaning lady who changed corporate America headlines screamed from every screen. Wall Street reeled. The DOJ launched an inquiry. And Jasmine? She didn't hide. She called a press conference, standing on the steps of Wellington Tower, the same building she used to clean every night. She looked into the cameras without flinching. For years, injustice was written into this company's foundation. Today, we begin a rebuild, brick by brick, with transparency, with ethics, and with a leadership team that reflects the real face of America. Reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Parker, did you plan this all along? Did you know Paul Wellington was involved from the start? Do you think the company will survive?" She answered only one. "We survive by changing. And I didn't plan this. I prepared for it." In the privacy of her office, Jasmine stared at the old photo that sat on her shelf. It showed her wearing janitor blues, mopping the floors of the same building. She kept it there as a reminder. Malik entered silently and placed a red envelope on her desk. "What's this?" "Anonymous drop." "I checked it. It's safe." She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photo, grainy but clear. Rebecca, meeting with Charles Sato at a private retreat in Lisbon. Timestamp, 2 weeks ago. Jasmine's stomach turned. She picked up her phone and called Lisa. "We have a problem," she said. "They're not gone." Lisa's voice hardened. "I'll activate surveillance. Who else do you think is involved?" Jasmine stood slowly and looked out at the skyline. "I don't know." she whispered. "But they're coming back. And this time, they're not just after the company. They're coming for me." Across the ocean, in a marble villa overlooking the cliffs of Algarve, Rebecca poured herself a glass of wine. Charles Sato stood beside her, reviewing a dossier. "She moved faster than we expected," he said. Rebecca smirked. "Let her play queen. She still doesn't know how deep this goes." "We lost Paul." Rebecca raised a brow. Paul was never a player, just a pawn with a famous name. She turned toward the window, watching the waves crash below. "It's time we remind Jasmine," she said coldly, "that even the strongest towers can be brought down. All it takes is one crack." Charles looked up. "Are we ready?" Rebecca smiled darkly. "Oh yes, it's time to play our real hand." The storm didn't wait for nightfall. By noon, Manhattan was covered in a thick gray veil, the kind that distorted the skyline, that made even the tallest towers look uncertain. In the corner office on the 38th floor of Wellington Industries, Jasmine stood perfectly still, watching the weather shift like it was an omen. On her desk sat a confidential folder, still unopened. Inside were the results of an internal audit, the kind of audit Jasmine had learned to request discreetly without alerting the wrong eyes. She took a breath, opened the folder and read. Unusual expense rows. Duplicate invoices. A consultant listed under 3 names. Payment approvals that bypassed her office. Someone was rerouting money again. She looked up at Malik, who stood guard near the door. "How far did this go?" Malik's voice was tight. "It links to a shell company in Singapore. But the real trail leads to Lisbon." Jasmine's fingers tapped the desk once, then again, then stopped. "She's back," she said. Malik nodded. "And she's not alone." 3 hours later, inside a glass-walled conference room, Jasmine addressed a closed meeting of Wellington's cybersecurity team and legal advisors. On the screen behind her were 5 names, each of them linked to Rebecca's network. Some current employees, some former. One, the shock, was a board member. "We're being infiltrated," Jasmine said calmly. "They're not stealing money this time. They're mapping us, reading our movements, planning something." One of the lawyers, a woman with icy blue glasses, leaned forward. "You're suggesting corporate espionage?" "No," Jasmine said. "I'm saying we're at war." That night, back in her apartment on the Upper East Side, Jasmine stared at the wall of data she had been building in secret. Photos, timelines, transfers, offshore companies, encrypted messages. She traced a single line with her finger. From Wellington's failed Brazil project 2 years ago to a newly registered consulting firm in Luxembourg, tied to Charles Sato. A knock came at the door. It was Lisa Wong. She entered silently, carrying a silver briefcase. "They tried to bribe one of our advisors in Seoul," Lisa said, opening the case. "The money trail was sloppy, like they wanted us to find it." "Why?" "To lure us," Lisa said. "To distract you." Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "Distract me from what?" Lisa placed a small black device on the table. "From this." The screen lit up. A surveillance feed. Time-stamped 4 hours ago. Inside it, a man approached a tech terminal in the building's sublevels. Paul Wellington. He had entered through an auxiliary access panel, one he was supposed to be locked out of. Jasmine felt a cold wash of fury rise in her chest. "Get me every keycard log, right now," she snapped. "And prepare a counter-surveillance team. They think I'm sitting on my throne." She looked up, steel in her voice. "But I was never here for the crown. I'm here to protect the people." The next day, Jasmine descended into the underbelly of Wellington Tower. Only a few knew this part existed, where data cables hummed like arteries and the hum of servers echoed like whispers. Accompanied by Malik and 2 security officers, she approached a door marked Restricted Legacy Archives. "This is where Paul hid the old files," Malik said, "before you took over." The door opened. Inside were rows of locked cabinets, files, hard drives, encrypted servers, a vault of secrets, One cabinet had been tampered with. Jasmine reached inside and pulled out a thin black binder. Its label, Project Brightstone. She opened it. What she saw made her blood turn to ice. It wasn't just evidence of financial fraud. It was a program, a data algorithm, built years ago under Rebecca's leadership, designed to predict and influence executive decision-making based on race, accent, education, and ethnicity. It ranked employees using a bias-weighted scoring system. It had cost the company nearly $9 million to build, and it had been used. Jasmine stepped back, her breath shaky. She remembered the meetings she hadn't been invited to, the promotions that never came, the Black, Latino, and Asian employees who had mysteriously plateaued. It hadn't just been discrimination, it had been engineered discrimination. Jasmine turned to Malik. Take this straight to Federal Counsel. No leaks, not even internally. Malik's face was pale. We need to tell the board. Jasmine's eyes turned sharp. Not yet. I need to know which one of them let Paul in. Across the ocean, in a private resort in Portugal, Rebecca sat poolside, a tablet in her hand. She was watching a live stream, Jasmine's press statement from the day before. She's sharp, Charles said, sipping espresso beside her. Too sharp. Rebecca smiled coldly. Which is why we won't go through her. Charles raised an eyebrow. Her mother, Rebecca said softly. Diabetic, vulnerable, lives alone. Charles's smile faded. You're going after her family? Rebecca didn't blink. She declared war. I'm just reminding her what it costs. Back in New York, Jasmine sat quietly in her car, parked outside a small clinic in Brooklyn. Through the rain-covered windshield, she watched her mother leave the building, clutching a brown pharmacy bag. Jasmine didn't wave. She didn't call out. She just watched, protected, because now she understood what this really was. It wasn't just about power or revenge or justice. It was about how far she was willing to go to defend everything she had built and everyone she loved. And as the lightning cracked over Manhattan, Jasmine whispered the words to herself. Let them come. The morning air in New York was soaked in quiet dread. Fog wrapped around the towers like gauze, and the city, always humming, seemed to hesitate, as if it sensed that something dangerous was about to break. Inside Wellington Tower, the executive floor was locked down. Jasmine had summoned only 4 people to the inner sanctum: Lisa Wong, Malik, Victoria Reed from legal, and Amir, the head of internal intelligence. A red light blinked above the conference room door. Signal jammer. Activated. Speak freely, Jasmine said, her voice steady. Lisa slid a folder onto the table. Inside, photos, intercepted messages, off-book travel records. One was particularly damning, a signed authorization form, dated 2 weeks ago, allowing backdoor access to Wellington's legacy servers, signed by board member Elias Rothschild. Amir nodded. He's the leak. He's been laundering data to Lisbon. Rebecca paid him through a charity in Lagos. Jasmine's mouth twisted. Charity, she repeated. That's what they're calling it now. Malik folded his arms. He needs to be removed. Legally, forcefully, I don't care. But we have to make it public. No, Jasmine said. We do this my way. She turned toward Lisa. Get me 2 teams. One for Rothschild. One to follow the money trail through Lisbon. But first, call the DOJ. Lisa blinked. You're going federal? I'm not giving them time to scrub this. We burned the whole thing down. From the inside. That afternoon, Jasmine walked into her father's old office for the first time in nearly a year. It was just as he had left it. Dark walnut bookshelves, velvet drapes, the faint smell of leather and Havana cigars. In the corner, a hidden drawer. She opened it slowly. Inside was his journal. She hadn't read it since the funeral. As her fingers brushed the worn leather cover, she remembered his voice, distant, layered with regret. Never let the empire turn you cold. Jasmine sat down and opened to the last entry. It wasn't business notes. It wasn't strategy. It was a letter to her. If you're reading this, It means I failed to keep the wolves at bay. I'm sorry for that. But I believe in you, Jazz. Not just because you're my daughter, because you're the only one among us who never lied to herself. Don't fight them for revenge. Fight them because you believe in something better. That's how we win. Dad. Jasmine closed the book. Her eyes burned, but no tears fell. She didn't have the luxury. Across town, Elias Rothschild sat in a mahogany-lined cigar lounge, laughing over a glass of whiskey with two junior senators. His phone buzzed. A text. No name, just a burner number. Check the news in 5. He scoffed. Probably another blackmail threat. Then the televisions around the bar flickered. Breaking news. DOJ announces formal investigation into Wellington Industries. Underneath it, Elias Rothschild's face, blown up, uncensored, labeled key figure in international corporate espionage and data manipulation. He dropped his glass. It shattered. By the time he looked up, the two senators were already walking away. Inside a dark, windowless tech lab deep beneath the tower, Lisa Wong monitored the reaction in real time. 10 calls in 6 minutes, 3 burner lines, Rothschild's trying to run. Jasmine stood behind her, watching coldly. He won't get far. He's going to flip, Lisa added. They always do. Jasmine looked down. Let him. I want Rebecca to know we're coming. That evening, in a secure black site facility in D.C., Jasmine sat across from a former asset of Rebecca's, a man named Mateo Alvarez, ex-Wellington security, exiled after the Brazil scandal, now back, but not by choice. He was handcuffed to a steel chair, sweat dripping down his forehead. I have nothing left to lose, he muttered. She took everything. Then give me everything, Jasmine said, and I'll give you immunity. Mateo looked up. You want to know what Rebecca's really after? She doesn't care about Wellington anymore. She's after the Global Seed Patent Registry. Jasmine's stomach dropped. That registry is locked under 4 levels of encryption. She can't access it. She already has the access keys, Mateo said. She built 2 of them. The 3rd was stolen last month in Geneva. And the 4th? Jasmine asked. Mateo stared at her. You have it. Later that night, Jasmine stood alone on her penthouse balcony, staring at the city below. The weight of it pressing in, secrets, betrayals, plots within plots. Malik stepped beside her. You okay? She didn't answer. You were right, he said quietly. This isn't just a hostile takeover. This is a global play. Jasmine turned to him, eyes sharp. Then we hit back globally. She held up a chip, the 4th key, embedded inside a sapphire necklace she wore since college, a gift from her father. If they want it, she said, they'll have to come for me. In a heavily guarded villa in the Portuguese countryside, Rebecca watched the footage on a large screen. Jasmine in D.C., Jasmine at DOJ, Jasmine at the balcony, every angle, every breath, every move. She's building an army, Charles said behind her. Rebecca lit a cigarette. So are we. Charles frowned. But the DOJ, the media, she's got momentum now. Rebecca stood. I'm not going to beat her in court, she said, voice low. I'm going to erase her. Charles paled. You mean? Rebecca turned, her eyes black with certainty. Remove her, publicly, shockingly, with just enough ambiguity to confuse the world. She smiled slightly. Let them build her a statue. She won't be around to see it. Back in New York, Jasmine met quietly with Amir and Malik in a private elevator heading to a restricted floor. Interpol flagged a known assassin entering JFK 3 hours ago, Amir said. Who? Jasmine asked. Amir pulled up the face. Name, Sora. Japanese-Malaysian. Specializes in high-visibility kills. Jasmine's face hardened. They're not just trying to scare me. No, Malik said, checking his gun. They're trying to martyr you. In the dark silence of the tower, Jasmine entered a code and opened a biometric vault. Inside was a single black briefcase. She opened it. A portable AI firewall system, one of her father's secret creations. the last defense. She placed it into a steel-lined backpack and turned to Malik. Alert the Ghost Protocol team. Tell them we go dark, full black mode. You're vanishing? He asked. Only for a few days, Jasmine replied, long enough to move the board of the chessboard. A cold rain sliced through Manhattan like razor wire. It was 3:13 a.m. The city should have been sleeping, but tonight it wasn't. Jasmine Wellington was gone. No press release, no explanation, no trace. The top floor of Wellington Tower was sealed, silent. The security staff received encrypted instructions. Initiate dead silence protocol. Only 5 people knew what that meant. Lisa Wong was one of them. She stood before a touchscreen wall in the core operations room, entering a 256-digit one-time code. The floor rumbled softly, a sub-level 9 unlocked for the first time in 5 years. Inside, a war room built for collapse. Steel-paneled walls, quantum processors, a silent countdown ticking above the main screen, 72 hours. Malik arrived seconds later, eyes scanning the darkness. She's in transit, Lisa said, not turning. Where? Lisa handed him a black envelope. His name was written in Jasmine's handwriting. Malik opened it. Inside, one instruction. Geneva, Vault 14. She's waiting. Geneva, Switzerland, 18 hours later. Snow flurried down on the cobblestone streets like falling ash. Malik stepped from a black car, eyes narrowed under a beanie. The Swiss Alps loomed like ancient ghosts in the distance. He passed 3 guards, flashed a biometric card, descended 2 elevators, walked through an iris scanner, and then there she was, Jasmine, dressed in all black, calm, alive. They hugged like soldiers reunited after war. You good? He asked. For now, she replied. Malik looked around. What is this place? The final fallback, Jasmine said. My father built it during the quantum crisis. It's not on any grid. She led him to a secured chamber. Inside, holographic projections of every major player in the game. Rebecca, Elias Rothschild, Interpol's leaked files, DOJ memos, banking transactions in Lagos, Panama and Jakarta, and then something new. Malik's eyes widened. Is that? Jasmine nodded. Yes, the seed registry. Lisa's voice crackled through a secure line. The press is going crazy. Rumors of your death. Rothschild is on the run. Rebecca's in Lisbon preparing a major speech. Jasmine replied coolly. She's baiting the world into thinking I'm dead, so let's make her believe it. Malik raised a brow. You're going full Phantom? Jasmine nodded. I'll make her think she won. And then we take her whole empire apart. From behind her. Lisbon, Portugal, 48 hours later, Rebecca stood atop a marble stage at the Global Ethics Conference. Her dress shimmered silver under a rain of camera flashes. My friends, she said to the audience, a new era begins now. Corporate tyranny is over. The crowd applauded. In the crowd, Charles, Interpol agents, tech CEOs, silent investors, and, unknowingly, Lisa Wong, wearing a diplomatic badge. In her ear, Jasmine's voice whispered, Plant the worm. Top floor, server room B. Once it's in, we ghost the entire room for 20 minutes. Lisa slipped into the elevator, unnoticed. The plan was live. Meanwhile, Jasmine and Malik sat in a stolen data van outside the venue. On screen, a live satellite uplinked to Lisbon. Server breach in 90 seconds, Lisa whispered. Malik loaded a compact weapon. You know, if this goes wrong, you're on Interpol's list for life. I'm already on the list, Jasmine said flatly. Malik hesitated. You sure about what's on that server? If we leak it, the whole world burns. I'm counting on it. The screen blinked. Access granted. Inside the worm, Rebecca's entire black network unfolded in real time. Bribes, assassinations, data erasure orders, money trails, even worse, plans for digital election interference across 3 continents. Malik cursed under his breath. Holy hell! In Lisbon, Rebecca's speech was speaking, and to prove our commitment to transparency, she smiled, we are releasing our full funding sources and board communications, live. The crowd clapped. Behind her, a giant screen blinked to life. Rebecca turned, expecting the prepared video to play. Instead, Jasmine's face appeared, not live, pre-recorded, dressed in mourning black. You killed my father. You stole from our company. You tried to erase me, but some legacies don't die in silence. You built your empire on secrets, and now I'm giving them all back to the world. The screen exploded into chaos, documents scrolling, images flashing. Rebecca froze. Behind her, gasps, then screams. Interpol agents in the crowd stood up, weapons drawn. Rebecca Langford once said, "You are under arrest for international crimes against public trust." But she was already moving. Back door, exit, 2 bodyguards. Get to the car. Outside, chaos, protesters, screaming. Inside the van, Malik and Jasmine watched the feed. "She's running," Lisa said in their ear. "Let her," Jasmine replied. "She still thinks I'm in Geneva." Later that night, outskirts of Lisbon. Rebecca's black SUV tore down a back road toward a private airfield. Inside, her breathing was ragged. "This isn't over," she said to Charles. "We spin it. Say the video was AI generated, deepfake. We killed the narrative." Charles didn't answer. He was staring ahead, because standing in the middle of the road, lit by the SUV's headlights, was Jasmine, alive, holding a phone. She pressed a button. A signal cut through the sky. Seconds later, the car's brakes locked, doors jammed, security tech fried. Jasmine walked forward. Rebecca stepped out, trembling, mascara running. "You died," she hissed. "I rose," Jasmine said. "You think this proves anything?" "No," Jasmine whispered, "but this does." She tossed the drive at Rebecca's feet. Every document, every order, every blood contract, already uploaded to 10 international watchdogs, already mirrored across the deep web, already viewed by 12 million people. Rebecca collapsed to her knees. "You don't get to win," she murmured. "I don't want to win," Jasmine said. "I want the world to see you fall." And then she turned and walked away into the night. A brutal wind howled over the edge of a cliff where the sea met the sky. Jasmine Wellington stood alone, wrapped in a wool coat. Her breath clouded the air as she stared out across the black waters of the North Atlantic. This was the place her father brought her once, when she was 10, a place of silence, of memory, of truth. Behind her, Malik approached slowly. "No one's seen you in days," he said quietly. "I needed the quiet," Jasmine replied, not looking at him. He waited, unsure. She finally turned. "I have a question, Malik." "Anything." She looked him dead in the eyes. What does someone do when they've already burned down the empire they inherited? He didn't answer, because he didn't know. Washington, D.C., Senate hearing room. Rebecca Langford sat behind bulletproof glass. Her face was pale, her lips cracked. Her empire was gone. Stocks frozen, board members indicted, passports seized. On the screen behind her, congressional subcommittees, special counsels, journalists, and victims from across 5 countries. A senator leaned forward. "Ms. Langford, did you authorize the Red Directive?" Rebecca stared blankly. "Did you order the neural suppression of whistleblowers in the Nairobi office?" Still no answer. "Did you attempt to assassinate Jasmine Wellington?" Rebecca turned her head, slow. "No." "Do you know where she is now?" A pause, and then, "I hope she's dead." Zurich, Switzerland, Wellington Holdings headquarters. Lisa Wong faced the board. "We've been offered a buyout by the Japanese Energy Consortium, a clean exit, but Jasmine's last instructions were clear." She clicked the screen. Jasmine's voice echoed through the room via secure recording. "No more public trading. No offshore laundering. No shell companies in Delaware or Dubai. We rebuild, Transparent, clean, and with zero tolerance for shadows. Murmurs broke out. One board member whispered, "She wants to turn us into a charity." Lisa cut in. "She wants to turn us into something human." London, Interpol HQ. Charles sat alone in an interrogation cell, bloodshot eyes, wrinkled suit. He hadn't slept in days. The agents questioned him for hours, but he never gave them Jasmine's location, because even now he wasn't sure where she'd gone. He only knew why. She wasn't hiding. She was deciding. Reykjavik, anonymous apartment. Jasmine sat in front of a fireplace, a single light on, a laptop open, a blinking cursor on a blank page, an email draft to the people of the world. She typed, "You saw what they did. You watched the tapes. You saw the bank trails, the wars, the coded lies. You saw the system." She paused, deleted the sentence, then typed again. "The system we allowed to happen." Flashbacks, montage sequence begins. A younger Jasmine in her father's study, reading old strategy manuals and ethics textbooks. Her first board meeting, her first betrayal. Malik bleeding in that motel in Jakarta. Lisa handing her the encrypted seed registry. Her face flickering across the Lisbon screen, exposing Rebecca to the world. Rebecca on her knees in the Portuguese night, shattered. The legacy wasn't just money, it was power, consequence, choice. The present, Jasmine closes the laptop, email unsent. Malik stepped into the room behind her. He carried an old leather-bound notebook. "Found this in your dad's bunker," he said. "It's not financial records." She opened it. Inside, letters her father had written but never sent. One line was underlined. "One day you'll face a choice. To lead quietly or to speak loudly. Either way, choose with full weight or don't choose at all." She read it twice, then a third time. New York City, a giant screen in Times Square. The world's largest billboard flickered for a moment. Then it lit up. Jasmine Wellington. Live. It was the video she recorded in Iceland, her face calm, unflinching, honest. "My name is Jasmine Wellington. You saw the tapes. You know what was done in our name, but you don't need a savior. You need a mirror. What you do next is not about me, it's about all of you." Cut to black. Hashtag, $, no more shadows. 6 months later, Nairobi, Kenya. A school opened in Jasmine's name, built on land once exploited by her company. Now repurposed, fully solar, tuition-free. Inside, a plaque read, "This is where silence ends." Final scene, Iceland 1 year later. Jasmine and Malik sit side by side on the same cliff. The wind is calmer now. Below them, waves crash against rocks. Malik turns to her. "Do you regret anything?" She watches the horizon, then speaks slowly. "Only the years I stayed quiet." A beat, then she adds, "But not anymore." Fade to black and credits roll. Music rises, haunting, resilient, unbroken.